This is a previously recorded episode of the IT in the D show. IT in the D, networking Detroit, one beer at a time. itinthed.com.
Time making sure that public information is actually public and available and accessible to the people who really need it to make decisions in their city and their communities. And then also Pish Posh TV, we do a lot of video programming based on making sure that people understand technology and can learn, actual high quality content for free.
Hello everyone, I am periscoping this. I wouldn't normally do this on a panel, but I feel that it's appropriate at Social Media Day. So everyone say hi to my periscope.
Three viewers.
I'm Dave Anderson, one of the co-founders of Bamboo Detroit.
Say hi to my periscope, just doesn't sound right.
We have about 100 or so members that work out of our space, and we just try to come up with innovative ideas all the time.
Hey everyone, I'm Jake Cohen. I'm with Detroit Venture Partners, where I've been for, it'll be 5 years in November when we started. And before that, I was in Ann Arbor with, in school actually. I was working on the Wolverine Venture Fund there. And before that, I was starting a company in Ann Arbor called EatBlue.com, which became YouGrub.com, selling food for restaurants and college campuses. There's a company called YouBars.com too. You can guess what that one was doing. Happy to be here.
I have Sprint, so I can't periscope. That was rude. I'm sorry. My name is Niles Heron. I'm one of the co-founders of Michigan Funders. We're an equity crowdfunding platform targeting both non-accredited and accredited investors in Michigan looking to invest in Michigan businesses. Those businesses raise between $50,000 and $2 million. I try to focus the intent and opportunity in my platform in the idea of community-based investing. I think that investing in things that are local to you builds a different kind of brand ambassadorship or brand patronage to the establishments. If there's a coffee shop on your corner, you buy in, you're going to buy your coffee there. You're building good, sound, economically viable businesses by way of investing in them and building the things that you want to see happen. So technology is pretty essential to what I do. I think that's what we're here to talk about.
Hi everyone, my name is Marlon Page, and 20 years ago, I was an aspiring mortician, graduated from Wayne State University, and so I learned how to code. And so I became a mainframe programmer at the age of 25, so 20 years ago. And I went on to become the deputy CIO for the city of Detroit. The technology changed the trajectory of my life. It was nothing that I ever thought I would do. And so because of that, I founded an organization called Sisters Code. And Sisters Code is, we are empowering, enticing, and educating women ages 25 to 85 to explore the world of coding and technology. And then as a mom of a teenager, I also put on my other hat, I'm known as Chief Technology Mom. And so I do a lot around internet safety for children, keeping children safe on the internet. So I tell the stories about why and how we do that.
Peace everyone, my name is Piper Carter, and I do a lot of things in Detroit. If I have to sum it up, I would say that I am a visual communicator, whatever that means to you. And I'm also a community organizer. I'm a founding member of the Detroit Digital Justice Coalition. About 2011, we received $2 million from Obama. We've established 13 free computer centers within the city of Detroit serving underserved communities of people of color, low income, youth, and seniors. And I also have created a day called Dilla Youth Day, which is all about STEAM, and that is bringing technology and hip hop to young people. So having established people that work within the music industry that are a part of Detroit's innovation work with youth to bring out the intelligence that's already within them and connect them with high-end and low-end technology. And I'm also a part of the makerspace movement that's here, and I helped establish a few makerspaces within the city, and now I'm working to establish a mobile makerspace. Hi, I'm Alicia Jones. I'm the CEO of Harmony Point Information Technology Centers. We're an IT workforce development training organization. I retired as an international internet consultant for AT&T Commercial Markets in 1993, so I'm probably the oldest one on this panel. Through the assistance of Sun Microsystems and City of Detroit, Paul Reiser, we raised $12 million in information technology services to train Detroit youth to be Unix systems administrators. We have since began to train parents. We've trained over 1,600 Detroiters in information technology careers. We're really proud of that. Our graduates were the highest risk Detroiters. They're now making on average of $40,000 to $70,000 entry level. They're working for Amen. We have clear and convincing evidence that the highest risk Detroiters can pursue high skill, high wage, high demand technology careers. We just opened a $1.3 million tech center in Chrysler House, and I'm really excited about being here. Social media leveled the playing field for me. Technology is the great equalizer, and we're going to do it for 800 Detroiters this year. Thank you.
I'm Jill Ford, and I'm the Head of Innovation and Entrepreneurship for the City of Detroit. I'm part of Barry Bevitt's team. Very excited to be a part of this great panel today, and especially seeing so many different careers in technology and social media, and really inspiring people to see the different journeys that they can take. So my journey also started on the tech side. I started off as a programmer, and then went into business development, working with corporations such as Disney and Motorola on mobile games, both on the buy side and on the sell side. Went into angel investing and then heard about a bankruptcy. And so I was quite curious and started learning about Detroit and decided to come out and be a part of this revitalization. So I moved from San Francisco to Detroit. Very happy to be a new Detroiter and feeling very much a part of the family here. I am here to attract entrepreneurs and small businesses and to help the small businesses and entrepreneurs that are here to grow and to scale and to really become the global organizations that they have the great potential to be. So thank you very much and looking forward to this discussion.
So I'm going to combine a couple of questions here. And let me start by saying, your goal must have been to have the least accomplished person run the panel, because a lot of brain power up here. So let's kind of think in a couple of different ways. It's great we have so many folks. We've got a diversity of, kind of the ways that we're approaching this, but we're using some of the same tools. But at the core of it, we're all kind of motivated by some problem or thing that we see that we feel needs to be addressed, and we happen to be using this tool and technology to do it. So kind of frame for me what the challenge is that you're facing, and what you see as the hurdles or the next steps to really breaking through and how you define it, and where you really see the city both internally and externally on the other side of winning that battle. And if that doesn't make any sense, let me know. We're going to pass on now. We want to mix it up a little bit.
I think that...
She powered it on.
Okay, so I think that I would say funding and policy are two huge challenges. So one thing that we do, we're grassroots. And so we are people, we all volunteer, we don't get paid to do what we do. We just do what we do because we saw a need, and we're not a business. We don't have any funding per se. The funding that we receive is for computers and supplies and for people to do the work. And so the reason I say funding and policy, there are a lot of issues linked to policy that impact people in the community that, for which decisions are made that they're not a part of. And so if we want to have stronger communities, then we have to have people that are from the communities at the table having conversations about policies that are being made that are about them. So one thing in particular that we have done, we've had recently in one of our meetings invited the new, please forgive me, I'm not sure of his title, Director of Technology for the city, some version of that, to come in and explain to us what is going to be done with the open data. right? So the new open data, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, I won't go completely into it. If you're sitting there, just look up open data. And so we needed it explained to us, and a lot of us are extra, right, like techie and tech savvy. And so when we're dealing in our communities, we're dealing with people who may not come into contact with this information on a regular basis and may not even understand how this information can be used against them or how they can even use this information to empower themselves. And so I think that when we talk about what are some solutions that we're doing on our end, we believe that education and educating the community is really important because that's the best way for us to be empowered.
So let me switch things up a bit. When I said Jake and Eda, and I hear about Detroit Venture Partners and I hear about Rocket Fiber, are you completely apart from that, or is there something that you're doing that you feel eventually connects to that?
That's the mic. Well, obviously, there's a lot you mentioned. So about, you said policy and funding were the two main things that two big challenges. I mean, we're definitely trying to provide funding where we can, but in our family companies. I think you're kind of referring to the two of us because we're both part of this Dan Gilbert family of companies.
I'm not calling any names.
but so with Rocket Fire, with Detroit Venture Partners, both part of this family of companies. Funding is definitely a piece that we feel like also is a major challenge for Detroit. When we started Detroit Venture Partners, the idea was I had been graduated from Michigan at that point 3 times and watched all my kind of entrepreneurial friends move to New York, Chicago, LA, DC, and a lot of times if they're starting companies, they were getting funded and they felt like they couldn't get funded here in Michigan, so they had to go somewhere else. And so that's really the whole reason we even created Detroit Venture Partners, actually, was to fund entrepreneurs here in Michigan and give people the sense that they can get funded here in Michigan. Now, obviously, one organization can't do everything. We also have an organization called Wisdom that's done a lot more funding than we have, a lot more companies than we have at an earlier stage. We're probably funding a couple companies a year at Detroit Venture Partners. So on the funding side, we're a $55 million fund. We've invested about 70% of that over the last, it's been just over 4 years. And we're going to continue to invest in companies, beyond this fund. And Wisdom, obviously, they probably invest in 50 plus companies. So on the funding side, we're acutely aware of it, and we're trying to encourage other investors. Techstars, we encourage them to come to town. They just had their first class of companies this year. There's 10 companies, most of which were from out of town. Actually moved here for the opportunity. And then on the policy side, that's a little more outside of my. I'm as an extracurricular activity for me. I like to follow everything that's going on the policy side. But for us, it's really more of the private sector. What can the private sector do to encourage entrepreneurship in Detroit and keep smart people in the state and make them feel like they can build careers here and build companies here. So I don't know if that answers the question.
I just want to add something if I can. Well, great points. And Detroit Venture Partners is a great example. Dan and Jake and the rest of the partners that put something together to try and help the city and let essentially the rest of the world know that there is funding in Detroit. But we need others to kind of jump in. I want to go back and touch back on policy for a second. We have to, put the people in place on the government end that are going to pass rules and regulations that will attract entrepreneurship and will attract businesses that are going to come down here and put their money kind of where the mouth is. And another thing I'd say on the government end is that we all right here and everybody around us, we have to kind of push because this old way of doing things and being afraid to change is going to keep us behind. From a Rockefeller standpoint, we're building an infrastructure where Detroit will be one of the only cities in America that will have gigabit plus internet. But we, the help Detroit Venture Partners and Bamboos of the world who go and bring a lot of entrepreneurs together. But then you got to bring other people, and you need policy. I guess I keep going back to this policy. You need to put rules and regulations and policies in place that will attract businesses and entrepreneurship. Because to me, it all starts right there. And then everybody else, like the Dan Gilberts of the world, will want to come down here and actually make a change.
I think it's quite interesting that you bring up policy in a discussion about technology. And it's something that often gets overlooked. But there obviously needs to be some policy changes in order for us to be
Like what?
Well, I'm not getting into those specifics. That'll be a very long discussion. But
Well, just generally, like, if we could wake up tomorrow and enact or remove one law that could move this
we have to remove the red tape for businesses to open down here. I was just talking to someone today, I won't mention any names, but they said, I tried to open my business in Detroit, and there was so much red tape, I ultimately decided to go to the suburbs. That's ridiculous. I mean, that can't happen, and if we expect to compete on a global level. And so whatever technologies are in place to enable us, to remove that red tape, we need to go after it with just everything in us.
So I'll put this out to anybody. What role does technology play in either removing red tape? I heard you mention putting people in place, but right now we've got the people that are in place. So a lot of technology in social media and digital communications often serves to inform and connect. So how can we use these tools to inform and connect to push some of the change that we say we need?
Before we switch gears entirely, I just wanted to take a minute to address that. Before we switch gears entirely, I just want to take a moment to talk about the gaps that Dave was talking about, and that we want to make sure that starting businesses in Detroit and growing businesses in Detroit is accessible and as easy as possible and streamlined. We want it to be something that's attractive for people who are already here in Detroit and who are thinking about coming to Detroit. And that's one of the reasons why we've started programs like the Motor City Match, where we are literally taking every gap that we see in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, going after them one by one. So the Motor City Match is a quarterly competition where we make sure that Detroiters know this opportunity is always going to be available to them to get assistance with finding space for their businesses and finding funding for their businesses and finding the technical assistance that will help them to get their business started and expanding in Detroit. So this quarterly competition provides $500,000 every quarter directly into Detroit businesses, and each business that is winning a match from this competition and becoming an awardee with a space is going to get up to $100,000 of match funding that can be used to help to customize that space and make it perfect for the business. It can also be used for working capital and other things to support the growing of that business. And so as we see different needs of the business, whether it's talent or space, funding, we want to make sure that we are providing the support to help entrepreneurs to get the things that they need to be able to start those businesses and create the kind of jobs that are going to drive the revitalization of our economy.
I ended on a negative note, and I really don't like that. I want to steer to the positive direction. I want to say that the city is doing a lot. Jill is pushing this in the right direction. We've been working with her very closely. And like one thing, Eddie, he wouldn't tell this story about himself, I'm sure, but in opening Rocket Fiber, he had to personally walk, papers to be signed, as opposed to them sitting on people's desks. He walked them to get signed and approved in order to open that up. That's something that technology could easily solve.
So I'd like to just address, I really like what you brought up policy. It is interesting that we're talking about policy and technology. At Black Detroit and Metro PR, we've been in the city working with different communities for many, many years, and now I'm known for working with Brightmore and Cody Rouge and Osborne and several different communities. And I think the gap is not just about bringing on, I really value what you're doing, Joe, and the mayor's administration is doing, and we're all entrepreneurs and we really get what's going on, and business development is crucial in terms of our city. But I think there are other policies, I think there are other gaps that policy can address and that technology isn't yet responding. We still have a technology gap in our city. There are still people who don't have access to technology, and there are people who don't have financial literacy or are unable to read. And we really need to make sure that what's happening in Midtown and downtown is really being spread out throughout to make this city really the gem that it deserves to be and that it can be. We need to make sure that we don't forget those outlying communities because they, I don't think that, Jay, I love what you guys are doing at DEP and what Dan Gilbert's doing, but I don't think you are the panacea. I think we all, business and individuals and people in social media, we all have to step up and really address what's going on. on the outer communities as well as in the center of Detroit.
Completely agree. Yes, agree.
I'm going to piggyback on that and just maybe shake it up a little bit more, because when we look at policy and, as entrepreneurs who are in these prime locations, downtown, midtown, of course we want to look at policy and we want to get through the red tape. However, I would say that some of the red tape needs to be there. So before we go shake up everything, I like that you are looking at every piece of red tape, because there are some things that are put in place that is going to ensure exactly what you said, that people in the neighborhoods who are also entrepreneurs are going to be able to benefit from all of this greatness. So I wouldn't just get rid of all the policies. I would look at them one by one, because there are some that are in place to ensure that everybody is seen as an entrepreneur. And to bring it all together, because that's how the city is going to run.
So I want to hear from Alicia, and then I want to come back and talk about that a little bit before we open up for questions.
One of the policies that I think need to be changed is our diversity policies in the city of Detroit, and, we want, diversity. Well, the reality is, in 1967, a gentleman who was an executive for Michigan Bell, his name is Robert Feasy, went on loan to New Detroit after the riots. And one of the things he said in 1967 is companies need to change their hiring policies and consider hiring Detroiters, indigenous Detroiters. It's unconscionable that you would have a community of people who consider themselves disenfranchised, and there's a policy that's driving that. I'm an African American. I have 7 certifications from Georgia Tech. I was told, don't even think about going to college. You're not qualified. Go to the military. And there are too many African Americans. Detroit is 89% African Americans, but less than 5% of the workforce in IT. Something's wrong with that. There's a policy that's driving that, and I thought I'd better just talk about that pink elephant that's in the room. Because it's in the room. And so, but what about that? How do we live in peace? How do we share opportunities and we're not diverse? I think Nolan Finley did a whole article on that. And I think it's interesting. And I think we need to start looking at our policies regarding hiring, regarding diversifying our revenue. These funders at the table, what percentage of your funding, your funders, entities that you're funding represent Detroiters? And that's a good question. We have to really address that. But I think that's a big policy. One of the challenges is ethos. And I'm just going to break that word down. It's your perception of how you see individuals. Ethos is perception. It's unconscionable. I'm in the field of IT. I was the only African American in AT&T commercial markets. Ethos, and I was the only female. Is what do you see when you think of IT talent pool? This is social media. I look at Sola. You would never, ever find her in a corner at AT&T or in a Bell Labs, because she would have been excluded because of how she looks. But she's the leader. And you look at this panel, it's diverse. Why isn't our workforce diverse?
So let's talk about that a little bit. And I know that we could have infinite conversations about policy, but none of us are going to wake up tomorrow in a position to actually write legislation. But what we all are is 10 and a half very talented people. So while we're waiting on policy to change, and now as you remember, we had that conversation with Jill at Bamboo when we started designing what this thing would look like, and then we waited on someone to make it happen, and I said, why are we waiting for someone to make it happen?
We are.
And the epitome of what we do is creating things that don't exist outside the system, with the system, screw the system, whatever. Why can't we collectively look at some of those things? So when we talk about inequality, or we talk about talent gaps, or we talk about lack of diversity, yes, there's policy things that can be done, but I think at the end of the day, Jake, you want to fund the company that gives you the best return, right?
And we want to fund successful companies.
Right.
Return, create jobs.
And you don't necessarily care what that company looks like or who the founders look like. So what are some ways that we can, I don't mean you don't care in terms of, but there's talent there, there's a fundable company there, you'll fund it. You don't say, well, look, it's black, I'm not going to fund it. Right. So what are some things that we can do collectively in some of the efforts we're doing to connect some of the dots to improve some of the talent that's here, so that we're not necessarily waiting on policy to say who should or shouldn't be hired, but we're improving some of the talent?
You know, I don't know that I'm actually the person best qualified to answer that question, but what I will say is that I think that the circumstances we find ourselves in, especially in Detroit, in a city, in a metro area that's so segregated, is that the racial disparities are compounded. It's not that Jake doesn't want to fund a black company, it's that there aren't companies that are presenting themselves in the mechanisms that his structure allows.
So how do we fix that?
I think that it starts with having these discussions, genuinely. I think that at some point we talk about the role of technology in an emerging city and the way that technology allows us to interface in new ways, right? I mean, everybody has somebody on their Facebook feed that they don't want to talk to who's talking about how the Confederate flag is the most important thing that's ever happened to America. We can't get rid of it. Like, there's that guy. He's there.
You keep
right? But in real life, the opportunity to interface in broad strokes with lots of people via technology, whether that's social media, Facebook, Twitter, I don't care if it's on Pinterest, the idea that we should not be having the discussions that we're having right now and not ignore the fact that race is real and that disparity is real and that Detroit may be prosperous and people want to take pictures of all the great things happening in the 7.2 miles, but Mac and Bellevue is still Mac and Bellevue, even though it's a half mile away from West Village, which everyone loves.
So Piper, when you look at what you're doing.
So part of what we do, the Makerspace, that's what we do. So in the Makerspace, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the style of Makerspace, but the Makerspace is basically an open community. And so what we do is we bridge low tech and high tech. So a lot of times when we talk about technology, we're always talking about like cutting edge technology and stuff that you're going to read about that someone's developing or like startups and things like that. But we have to also remember that our brains are technology and we have tools such as electricity. So we teach things like basic electricity to youth, to seniors, and we teach basic skills like plumbing. Right? This is basic technology. Like, let's not forget that fixing a bicycle, like those skills are very viable. We have like Earn a Bike, where youth can come learn how to fix a bike, and instead of purchasing a bike, you just fix this broken bike. Now you've got a new bike. You go to Kmart or wherever you go and buy a bike, it's like $250. If you're a parent, you have 4 kids, all 4 of your kids want a bike, that's like $1,000 to make sure each one of your kids has a bike. As opposed to go to a free space, show the kid how to use a wrench and a hammer or like a tool and get some used parts, and now all 4 of your kids have a bike for free, plus the skills necessary to learn how to fix the bike. That's just one thing that we do. We break it up into wearables. We teach about recycling. We teach about the value of recycling, and we also teach entrepreneurship because let's remember that we have green technology, and there's a lot of new green jobs, and you can go to, fill in the blank TT Tech to learn about green technology, but really green technology is just, you go to Trader Joe's, what do you do with that bag? Well, you go to the recycling center, right? That's over there in the New Center area on Saturday, and that's reusing your existing technology. And so a part of what we do is retrain people's thinking around things that we already have around us, putting those things back to use. And instead of thinking about being this consumer culture or this extra capitalist culture, since we live in this so-called, blue collar or like the ruin porn, right, of America, the failed city of America, that's what they call us. But in reality, there's so many people that used to be the leaders in technology, right? We built all the military tanks and not guns, but machinery, and armored cars and blah blah blah. So these people are still viable. So we hook these people up that still have these skills with these young people who really know nothing, right, about how to use their hands because they're on Facebook all day. And it's really about regenerating these relationships as well within the community.
So Michael,
I'm going to attempt to not piss into the wind right here, but when we're talking about failed city, right? Like, we are in a city that has pretty much every major issue that the rest of the planet is going to experience at some time in the future. And if we want to talk about technology, there are so many opportunities that we need to be pushing people if they want to come up with a startup. If you want to have some sort of new business, look at those issues that we have. You know, these should not be new calendar apps or new games. Look at stuff where we're looking at water, we're looking at property, we're looking at, you know, serious transportation, even if it's not built out. How can we get people to and from their jobs or to and from school in a safe manner? Those are the type of startups and technology I want to see in this city. I think that's where people can really make their mark and have a change. And a lot of that doesn't even need to include working within policy or even changing policy. You can get around that to force change and to get people to look at what's going on. And then one other thing I was thinking about has been a huge issue for me with so much open data that we work with. And this isn't a Detroit thing really, but when places come and say, all right, we got a data portal. Oh, okay, so what? If you have data open and nobody knows how to use it, it doesn't matter. You can't just put something there and then step away and say, there it is. Right. And even some of these data portals will let you visualize something, but I can't go, as a friend of mine, Lauren Hood, likes to say, talking about Miss Jenkins. Miss Jenkins can't pull a CSV down and then load that up and go take a look around a map to find the issues that she's looking at. Open data is great, but along with that, there has to be absolute thought as to how the rest of the people can actually access it and use it beyond the people in this room. I think that is your first step if you are only looking at technology.
So Marlon, the wise veteran.
Yes, I am the wise veteran. I was going to say, you know, being a lifelong Detroiter, being afforded an opportunity to work in technology, I just feel like it's my reasonable service. This is just, so when I talk about the neighborhoods, one thing that Sisters Code is doing, and when I started Sisters Code, I am all about eliminating every excuse someone can have from the neighborhood as to why they cannot become involved in technology. So what we do is that we have sponsors where we go to their lab and we ask the women to show up just with a positive attitude in themselves. Of course, they pay a small fee because they need some skin in the game. But you come, you don't need a laptop, you don't need software. I just need you to get your butt in the seat, be willing to learn. And for 2 weekends, we teach them simple HTML, CSS, which is not coding, but it gets them in the door because people need to, you meet people where they are. So HTML and CSS are fun. So then, okay, I got you now. Next week you come back and learn some JavaScript. You are going to learn something. Then to connect it to the neighborhoods, we have an advanced class, and those ladies go out. We have businesses in the communities without a web presence. So I mean, seriously, there are businesses on 7 Mile, 8 Mile, like in the hood, they have no web presence. So our women from our class, for free, create a website for them. That way,
it didn't sound like a policy change.
we're pulling people into the world of technology to say, hey, don't you know it's a barbershop? Wouldn't it be great if people could find you? And that increases your bottom line. And then the women in our classes now have something that they can add to their resume. So it's just different thinking about, and no, so my stuff is not sexy.
That's sexy. I just read 600 applications, and half of them were small businesses looking for websites.
Okay.
So to have that level of resource that then builds a portfolio, so when someone comes to Jacob or someone else, you're not just coming with an idea, you have a body of work.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think the 10 of us or 11 of us could and should continue this discussion. So David, you tell us when you're hosting at Bamboo. But what I want to do, we've got a bunch of folks who have been listening to us, and we want to hear from them. So let's open it for some audience questions. Anybody? No questions?
All right, go on.
Who are we electing up here to be that voice? Because I think the way to make a policy change is someone needs to stand up and people get behind that person to be able to spearhead some political agenda so that it can happen. You have to be on the other side.
What I'm hearing, though, is that instead of just electing a leader or putting this on Jill's lap to represent the mayor, and I value what you're saying, what Marlon is saying, and what Piper is doing with Maker's Mark, with Maker's Space.
Right.
That was an order.
Yeah, right. I think we're trying to talk about what everybody's doing is about all of us taking a part in democratizing access. And the policy sort of starts with us rather than and I'm not suggesting that we're foisted on on government, on big business. But I really do think that we all have a role. All of us entrepreneurs, all of us social media advocates and participants have a role in democratizing access for this entire city. And when we can do that, this city will really be.
It has to be expedited. And so
Yes,
while
it
that is a lane that you would take, you have to expedite that lane. And I feel like in order to expedite that lane, you would be required to have somebody who would be able to do so for you. So, there's elections coming up, there's city, there's community. I think I can speak loud enough. I hope everyone can hear me in the rear end. But the bottom line is, it is policy. It is policy, policy, policy. Marketing is everything. You've got a room full of people that can have greater reach than ever before. And while I know there is the 20-60-20 rule, and you have that 20% of the people that Piper might be speaking about that don't have that access, that she's looking to achieve, that she's looking to grow and up them into a space where they can have greater advancement and opportunity and possibility in their life, we need somebody in this room or somebody to spearhead a process that enables that communication to be consistent and ongoing to the point where people are listening. And it's just, I guess it's being vocalized, but it's not happening.
You feel that with enough committed people, really genuinely committed people, that it can percolate organically. That with enough people.
But technology isn't percolating at that speed.
People that do it.
Right, I know it is. So I say, where do you find that happy balance between leveraging and escalating that percolating and that organic reach at a more expedited pace so that you can get that kind of policy moving forward because people want that policy. So I agree with you with the organic reach, but I think it's too slow.
I would say that speaks to marketing. So, like we live in a digital world and we live in like a media world. So I would say that speaks to marketing, right? Because there's lots of solutions. Like there's all these people up here that are working, and some of them in exclusive spaces and some less exclusive. So let's say like if you go onto the city's like open data portal website right now, a lot of cities are making their the open data portal accessible to the community. And as you were saying, right? I'm sorry. That part of what we do is like grandma understand how that relates to her, right? So that she can go in there and understand how this data, how she can use this data. And so grandma might not be on Instagram, right? And I don't even mean grandma as in like hood grandma. I mean like grandma, Harvard grandma, right? Like there are certain gaps, right, between generations of like younger people who use like Snapchat very frequently to like communicate. And I'm 43, so I'm kind of like one of those people that uses all that stuff. And then you have people who are more on the other spectrum who, may not use technology at all. I think Hillary Clinton said that she doesn't even know how to hardly check her email, right? So, I'm just being honest, right? So I'm just saying that. So I'm saying that to say that a part of what we get involved in is because we have all this sexy marketing. And so I think like the Dan Gilbert franchise uses sexy marketing like really, really well. And so the narratives that go out from there are the narratives because he has the money to get it in the right places, right? So let's say like things that are happening on 7 Mile might not be in Newsweek, right? Unless it's some catastrophic thing. Because those people there don't necessarily have the access to be able to send a press release for someone to open. Like, let me open up Shantiqua's press release, right? So I think that part of what can happen, since we're all in this room right now, we're all specialized in social media, is this is where it all starts. And the fact that we're all together, and like, I'm all the way over here, like, and open, I'll just like, out myself, I'm all the way on the left, right? And then there's some, really? Oh, right, and then there's some, and it's a mixed crowd, but this is what Detroit is all about, and this is the change. We are the change, right? So this change is actually happening right now. So right now we have this SMS day, right? So everybody just went and just put in that hashtag hashtag right now, we'd all be connected. And so then now, as opposed to us, we have this election coming up, and it looks as though the media and the powers that be want us all fight each other, have this little like race war and this class war. We don't even have to participate in that, right? We can participate in a new revolution, which is a revolution of our minds and a revolution of how we're building our communities, right? And it's up to us, right? So we don't have to participate in that. We can still disagree about whether welfare should or shouldn't happen. Like, that's fine. We can argue about that all day. But when it comes to some certain things, like you were saying, water, or just these like certain things that we really need to connect on, we just need to make decisions what's really important. You know, so that's what I would say that.
I think you're correct. I don't know your name, but you're right on point. There is no effort, no movement that's ever been successful without a final decision maker.
Exactly.
A veto.
Exactly.
Who had the responsibility of making sure something happens.
Exactly.
How do you quantify the effectiveness of anything if you don't have a measurable entity that you can go to? So you're absolutely 100% correct. I think the person who can spearhead that is sitting in this room. I see two people. I see a chair and a co-chair. I see a czar. In this room. Okay, and one of us on this panel, and the other one coordinated this event. So with all due respect, there's no way, there's digital deserts in Detroit in 2015. What is that?
Yes.
What is that? How do you have that with people who still don't have access to technology? Children that go to school and graduate after 13 years and don't even have an email address, have never had a tablet in their hands. So there's a problem, and let's just pretend like it's not there, and let's see if it helps. We need to have people in this room on a committee putting together resources, talking to Rocket Fiber to make sure that they know where those deserts are, talking to the vetoes who have the money, who can make sure that just like in West Bloomfield, every kid at least has access to a computer when they graduate from Detroit Public Schools. So yeah, it's going to take, and I think it's this lady next to me, and I think it's so, I just said, okay, so with all due respect, you know, you don't have to have money to make things happen. We started as a charitable organization, and Scott McNeely, the chair of Sun Microsystems, said, I like what you're doing. He sent 3 semi-trailers full of computers to Detroit for them to go into the hood. So it was the Mayor Archer's Conference on Education that brought it here.
Let's open it up. Are there any other questions?
I'll be on the committee.
It's important. We can't do this. We can't keep doing this.
Get up on my shot.
I just wanted, it's not so much a question. I just think this is a great opportunity for our co-founder Eddie to talk a little bit about what we're doing with the Allied Media Project and getting internet access to the neighborhoods.
Okay.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. So before I even touch on that, I just want to say that I'm an immigrant myself. I moved here in '99. Had zero, had nothing. So excuses, about race and anything else, I kind of don't buy them really, because there's absolutely nothing you can't do in this country. Whether it's Detroit, whether it's LA, wherever you're at. And I think I'm a proof of that, because I came from a war-torn country, had absolutely zero, and now I'm started a co-founded company. I go talk to the city, and we keep putting. I feel like we keep putting the city in the spot, because my personal experience with the city, while we do lack technology, in the city, and I think they're working very hard at fixing that. They're willing to listen to you if you just reach out to them. And they want to work with you, and they want to, make changes, where needed. But, in no way, shape, or form do I think that we don't need policy. I just think that we need better policy. And I have personally experienced, I've had experiences with the city, working through permitting and working through, a lot of things that we had to do from a Rocket Fiber standpoint to make this thing happen. And they've been an incredible partner for us. And they want to listen, they want to make a change, but they need help, right? They need help, and it's up to us to kind of come together and help them out. As far as getting internet access, I hear a whole lot of good things that you guys are doing. Please reach out. If you guys have a space you want internet at, we're coming there. We're working with Allied Media to try and get this out to the neighborhoods. We're working on a whole lot of things that we'll make public here shortly. But the whole point of Rocket Fiber is to get internet access not only to downtown and midtown, but to other areas as well. But we need people that are willing to program on top of the network. And we need people that are going to, that are going to teach people how to code. We're going to teach people how to use technology. Because the way we look at it, and we're willing to do that. You find a space, we'll bring gigabit fiber to that space for free. And you can quote me on that. Because the people that you're teaching how to use technology, they're going to become the new entrepreneur that starts that new company, that becomes our client, that becomes a company that Jake invests in, that they can go to Bamboo and get the mentoring they need to grow it. There's plenty of people to go to, but we have to take the lead on programming on top of the infrastructure that we have in place. The city is a good partner. I'm telling you guys it is, but we got to help.
And the partners in the city are good partners. Because I think one of the things that needs to be kind of circled back to, again, it's about having that dialogue wherein we say, this is the access that we feel like we lack. And the truth of it is that it's not that the door isn't there, it's that it's 5 steps to the right and you're looking straight forward. When you have companies like Rocket Fiber or DVP or Michigan Funders or Bamboo or the city of Detroit and people like Joe Ford, any of the things that you listen to, the meetings that we have, the people on this panel, when we sit down and talk, it's always about access. It's always about figuring out how to provide access to even just philosophical things like, how do I provide access to the hope that is necessary to be an entrepreneur in a city that feels devoid of it, right? How do you go about that? But we sit down and have talks about that. Like, how do we make entrepreneurs feel completely supported so you know that you have every piece of equipment necessary to build your plane on the way down after you jump off the cliff, right? That's the metaphor for entrepreneurship, right? Jump off and figure it out and go around. Like, how do we make sure people know that the access and the opportunities and the resources are in fact there? You just have to understand what they are and where they are and how to go get them.
Well, I think if we look at, so I'm going to be try not to be on the panel, trying to moderate it, but if we look back to the example that Marla talked about, as someone who works with small businesses citywide, I get a lot of folks saying, I need this, I need this, I need that. So you have a solution that you can put together that fulfilled 2 needs. Sisters learning how to code, building websites, and having small businesses that needed websites, and providing that solution. There was no law passed. You didn't go to city council to get an ordinance passed, the website, property act, whatever wrong. You did it. And all of us have things that we've done. And as we talk about policy doesn't lead, policy follows.
Right.
We all heard what happened today with the Supreme Court. Folks didn't say today, oh, okay, I'll be gay and get married. They've been living this life and pursuing it. So if we're waiting for policy to allow us to start doing the things we want to do, we're all going to be old and dead before it really happens. So what we need, I believe, is more examples like the ones you illustrated. And when you talk about the connectivity of Rocket Fiber with Piper's doing. So what I really want to do is hear some more of those opportunities. What are the things that we think we can do as we look at potential game changers in the city that really have nothing to do with policy, but it might be the lane you're in and where you see it once it comes to fruition, also facilitating something bigger than your core audience. So let's all kind of end on that note.
This goes back to the whole concept. I really appreciate that because I do believe that policy often follows and sometimes late to the table, late to the party.
Usually always. I think the Civil Rights Act was 1964, a few years after we got here.
That's right. And to use, words as it does, we all are part of this village and we all care deeply about this village. And each one of us is doing our own small piece to make the village a better place. But I think it's the collective voice and the collective spirit of entrepreneurs and people who live in the city, people who have access and people who have no access, that really can galvanize and make changes. And I think it's up to each of us to be mindful of it and to be doing the work that you're doing, Eddie, and the work that you're doing, Piper and Marlon, and the work that you're doing. Every one of us has a piece to that village and can step up and contribute to it. And then policy will follow. I very absolutely agree with this.
Amen.
You just sit there building in your head, aren't you? What are you building in your head? Come on.
Just been listening. I don't have a lot to say on that endpoint, but I did really think it was important when we were talking about down here with, for instance, the makerspaces and things like that. One of the biggest issues I look at in the city is when we're trying to do training for technology is looking at it as an into a job, which I think is a horrible way to work at it. I don't think you're going to get many people to go 0 to 60 in 10 weeks to learn something. But that is very important to get people into technology just for the interest of learning something new and having another bag of tricks to reach into. I think that's what gets people interested in looking at those 5 steps to the right that we were talking about. And so pushing that and saying, knowledge for the sake of knowledge, because it can open your mind to different opportunities.
So what you going to do about it, Mike?
That would be co-founder of Fish Posh TV. We're putting together a lot of free video training on doing physical computing, which I think is something that is super interesting
What
to
is
kids.
physical computing?
Okay, physical computing.
We're not all geniuses.
Okay. So one of the things, if you look at it and say, I want to learn HTML, I want to learn JavaScript, that's cool, but I don't think that, in my experience when talking to kids, makes their eyes go wide and they go, holy shit, that's awesome. So we look at doing a lot of 3D printing. We look at working with things called Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, which are small computers that allow you to actually interact with the world around you by turning on and off lights, working with robots, that sort of thing. So we want to make that something where people can actually get introduced to it for the first time. The first time you talk to a kid and show them a 3D printer from Detroit, they look at you like you were showing them science fiction. And they literally call bullshit sometimes and say that's not a real thing. And then you show them videos or bring it in and show it to them. And it blows their mind. And, kids can't be prepared for the next jobs or, next big thing if they don't know that it even exists to learn about it first.
You probably just can't believe that you're running a 3D printer on today's manual.
That's it, precise. So that's one of the things we're doing at Fish Posh and also looking to do classes as well. So.
I love that question. What are we going to do about it? Because I think that is the challenge for each of us. What are we going to do about it? And I just want to say that at Black Detroit and Metro Parent, we've been telling positive stories about our communities for a very long time, always positive based and highlighting really the special aspects of it. Well, now we're bringing storytelling to people, and we're working with Brightmoor and Cody Ridge and Osborne and communities to help them tell their own narratives. Mm-hmm. And we're remembering having communities, working with them to teach them how to tell their stories, mm-hmm. so that everybody can learn about what's the positive things that have happened to them. So that's very important. And it's part of helping to tell things.
I will agree completely with your point, Mike. When I look back at my own life and how I got started in technology, I didn't mention this in the introductions, but I used to be an engineer. I worked a lot in technology in both military and automotive. And it was because my dad, who was an electrician, gave me a radio kit, and we built it together when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And that was like my first introduction to electronics and technology. And I look at the impact that had on my life, and I know that it has a similar impact on many lives when they're introduced to it at the right time. So we've talked about, getting together, having these discussions, but what is discussion without action, right? So I really want everyone to take a piece home of not just, that was a good discussion. I'm glad we sat here and talked about policy in a technology conference. Think about really something that we can all do, and whether that's voting with your money or taking that kid who in your neighborhood or in Detroit and teaching them something about technology. It truly is the future, and they're going to be able to do something with it. So the last conversation that we had at Bamboo, we took that, all the things that we talked about, and we started piecing together, the different pieces that are really going to have a big impact on the city. And we plan on opening something or starting something very soon that's going to have that impact.
It's not going to leak. It's not here to It's a safe space, right?
Yeah, but it's not a huge deal. So we have a co-working space, and a lot of innovation takes place there. We're expanding and building out a much larger space where it's going to serve as an entrepreneurial hub that is very inclusive, that is ingrained in technology, that gives people access to capital and the education that's needed to pursue technology fields. So, that's it.
And Jake,
he just undersold that.
More to come on that one, I guess. I guess I'll just, one thing I want to say is I didn't get a chance to chime in, and we were talking about the diversity and inclusion topic for fundraising and for technology in general. Is like, we get this question all the time, and we're not the only ones who get the question because it's a challenge across the country, and every high-tech market, and Silicon Valley is probably getting the most heat actually about it right now, Google and Facebook, and trying to show numbers of how are they achieving diversity and
I think
inclusion.
it says, Facebook hired 7 black people last year or something like that?
I don't know the actual number, but it's clearly a challenge. I think that the people that are working to solve that problem are people that are open to ideas. And so I think that's what's been cool about working in our organization is I feel like people have been open to all different kinds of ideas. So as people have ideas, please bring them forward to us, and we're happy to talk about. We funded a company called Resurging I'm on the board of. We're trying to do more tech education in the community. A lot of that's on grant funding from the Skillman Foundation and from other foundations, kind of going into high schools and going even earlier in high school in some cases, exposing people to careers in technology. And anyways, bottom line is,
Jake, can I interrupt you real quick? Can you talk about what you're doing with Osborne High School?
I can probably talk about it a little, but not as quick. I just don't know all the details.
So Grand Circus has a program where they have busloads of kids come from Osborne High School that are teaching how to code. And I didn't know it until I got in there and sat down with Brad.
That's level I know about. You asked me to dive any deeper about what languages they're learning or what the program is like, but that's the type of program we're trying to encourage at Grand Circus. It's not the most profitable, venture-backable business. I'll just, no offense to Damien or anybody else who invested in that business. That wasn't, we weren't trying to, build a $1 billion company. We were trying to make an impact in the community. We invested, over $1 million in that business. Anyways, we're open to all different kinds of ideas. I think that's what I was going to say. That's what's exciting. Eddie can attest to it because he is like living proof of somebody who came up with an idea and just kind of got it done. And so as people have ideas in our organization around it, we would love to support them. And someone mentioned something about the PR machine and us being able to get the word out. We'd love to help publicize other exciting things happening in the city. We're definitely not only trying to publicize our own, and if people have great news that we can help share with our kind of PR engine. Because what we're trying to do is get as much bang for the buck of everything that we're doing, everything we're doing in the city, so we can publicize it to the world and try to create some momentum around it. But open up all different kinds of ideas people have.
Those were some great answers. I actually forgot the question because I was listening.
It doesn't matter anymore. Let's take his question.
Yeah, why don't we? Hello.
Hi. I guess my question would be just to speak about, it seems like we're talking a lot about entrepreneurs, making entrepreneurs, supplementing the entrepreneurs on the top level, and that's great to have entrepreneurs. And then we have the side of people that know not much and teaching them to code and teaching them to learn about technology. But as someone like me who's 26 and knows tons about social media and things like that, I'm not quite the entrepreneur, but I know a lot about technology. So how does that gap get bridged? As let's create all these entrepreneurs in Detroit, let's try to teach the other people how to do it. Where's the middle ground?
Well, what's the gap? One more time.
The gap would be someone's not an entrepreneur,
right?
But someone's not illiterate in technology. So we're creating, we want more entrepreneurs, and we want to teach the people that don't know about middle people.
So I think that you can genuinely, in a lot of ways, for the sake of this discussion, anytime you've heard the word entrepreneur, you could sub in the word opportunity in a lot of ways. What we're talking about is capitalizing on an open space. Whatever you build there, if you go and work for someone else in that open space, if you have the skills that are necessary, what we're trying to do, especially within the entrepreneurial development space, is try to build out job opportunities. I mean, listen, none of us, no entrepreneur that you ever talk to wants to die a solo shop.
Right.
We want to build things and hire people.
Right.
Most of the time, we want to build things and hire people and hand it to them and then go build something else. Because that's kind of how your brain works sometimes. I need another clip to jump off of, right? So, if you're talking about a gap between people who are skilled workers and jobs that you don't see in the landscape, I need a CTO right now. I got an email earlier today for someone who's doing Ruby on Rails and Angular programming. And if you know somebody, let me know. I need a resume. You got one? Talk to me.
If I can follow up with that, it's fine.
Oh, we actually we're out of time.
Gotcha.
We're over,
Right.
so.
Very, very quickly, the only thing that I would like to see changed in Detroit is the same thing I've now said 4 times, which is I'd like people to recognize that hope can actually translate into something tangible and real in Detroit's landscape right now. It's not tomorrow, it's not policy, it's not anything. Right now, you can take your dream and go out and do it. Find people who will tell you no, ask them why, and I bet you they can't give you a great answer.
I can't think of a better place to end it.
Yeah.
All right, I told you guys that this would be a highly engaging discussion, and it did not disappoint. Let's give another round of applause. So we're going to get to the part immediately, so anyone who does need to take off, you can go ahead. So this room will be open until 20 after, so please connect with each other and continue the conversation. Dave kind of grabbed the takeaway that I wanted to go with them, which is that conversation is wonderful, but really nothing happens without action. So consider the action items that you want to implement leaving here. Consider the connections that you want to make. Leverage social media, connect on LinkedIn, build a relationship. This is just the beginning. Okay, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Buick, Motor City Casino Hotel, Detroit Tigers, Red Wings, Little Caesars, ITT Tech, Detroit Venture Partners, Rocket Fiber, and all the other wonderful organizations we've been connecting with at Soundboard. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone.
IT in the D, Networking Detroit, one beer at a time. itinthed.com. This is a previously recorded episode of the IT in the D Show.